Welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm Ian Carlos Crawford.
I'm Brett White.
I'm Mae Schults.
I'm Colin Smith.
And we are here to kick off our Angel Season 3 coverage. I have brought on some new Scoobies, clearly. I feel like I'd waver between saying Scoobies and Angel Investigations team, because it's like, well,
yeah, we're still
Angel,
Scoobies.
But like, yeah. Scoobies just like flows nicer.
Flows a lot nicer.
Yeah. So we're here to talk Angel Season 3 premiere, Heartthrob. I am so happy to have the three of you on board. Thank you for... but it's not new for any of you. Colin and Mae, you both did Magicians. Brett, you've been doing every Marvel thing with me for 100 years.
Oh, that's right. Colin, we did meet before on an episode of Magicians.
I thought you did.
But Brett and I had not met.
Yeah. I guess to start it off, Brett, do you want to give us your Angel origin? Like when you started watching Angel?
As soon as it split off from Buffy. I started watching Buffy with School Hard.
Okay.
Or it might have been a rerun of School Hard in like early whenever what was that, 98? Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
So no, yeah, like I was all on board with this. And I watched all season 1 and all season 2, and I got to 3, and then 3 got great.
Yes, that I feel like most of the Angel coverage, Zachary Patton Garcia and Dana Piccoli, this is their first time fully going through, and I've spent a lot of the coverage being like, it gets so much better, I promise. It does get a lot better, I promise.
Every time you say that to Zach on an episode, I giggle to myself.
Yeah, I didn't watch it when it was live. I only like casually sometimes would pick it up, or if there was like a crossover, like Fool for Love, it was like, okay, well, I gotta watch.
Right.
And then
Did it move to Wednesday with this season? Did they split up the Buffy?
No, I don't.
Buffy's now on UPN,
had moved,
and so
I think they still aired the same night, though.
But I think Angel does move to Wednesday or something for like season 4.
I think that was only for season 5 of Angel. So once Buffy ends, they changed nights. That's what I remember from when it originally
respectful
aired.
of the WB.
Yeah.
Mae, how did you get into Angel?
Same as Brett. I have talked about my Buffy origin story on here before, which is that I started watching it as soon as it started airing. So when Buffy and Angel split off, I would watch them back to back every week. And it was a nice little double feature.
All right. Colin?
I did not watch it live when it was airing. I saw the odd episode here and there, but it was when I went back to revisit Buffy and was buying the DVDs when I hit season 4 of Buffy. Like,
so we're both the fake fans, yes.
Yes, exactly. Which is why you have a podcast about it.
Yeah.
So then when I started doing the DVDs of Buffy, I was like, well, now's the time to jump on with Angel. And like the crazy person, I would go episode for episode, which at the time meant switching out a DVD.
Switching. Jesus.
Oh yeah, no, that's the first couple times I rewatched it before it was on streaming. That's what I did too, because I have them all on DVD.
So, but then anytime I did after that, I'd go disc for disc versus episode for episode, because
that makes more sense. Unless it's like, again, even Fool for Love, you don't have to. What is it, Dear Boy, or is it Darla? That's like Darla. You don't have to like watch them. They make sense together, but you don't have to.
Oh, it's so good if you do, though.
It is.
What is airing before Angel right now? Is it Smallville? Did they put Smallville in Buffy's spot to like?
They might have.
I can't remember like what they were like. Because like honestly, what do you think is going to be a better lead-in for Angel than Buffy? WB.
Tom Welling into David Boreanaz, though.
I've had that dream many times. We are here to talk Heartthrob, the season 3 premiere. Colin, what'd you think revisiting this episode? Like, what'd you think of it?
It's good. For a premiere episode, it reintroduces, all the characters well enough. I think it gives a good update of what they've been up to since we last saw them.
I feel a butt coming. I feel like you're holding back from a butt.
It's it's not the most exciting premiere in the Buffyverse, but yeah, it's fun.
Fair. Mae, what'd you think?
So this episode is fine. I think it's a little anticlimactic as compared to like the 2-part season premiere of Buffy that it was essentially up against. Yeah. So I would have liked something a little bit more not necessarily intense, but a little bit more emotionally harrowing, I suppose. Seen Angel actually working through his grief a little bit, something like that. And there's a lot of great humor in this episode. It is a fun episode, and there's a lot to make fun of with what's his name's hair, both in the past and in the present, because both of those haircuts are terrible on that actor. So yeah, overall it's an enjoyable episode. Not enough Fred, but Cordelia is especially great, and especially the stuff with Dennis and Cordelia is wonderful.
So much.
Also, quick side note, you know that quick shot of Dennis that's in the opening credits where he's like looking up? Every time my brain goes, Ricky Martin. Every time.
Now I'm gonna have to, next time I rewatch an episode, I'm gonna have to remember the Ricky Martin of it and see if I agree. Brett, what do you think revisiting this episode?
Well, first of all, Angel airs on Mondays after Seventh Heaven.
Oof.
Oh, so Angel moved nights.
Angel moved to Mondays after Seventh Heaven, and Buffy is now the lead into Roswell on UPN, because Roswell also jumped.
Right.
I forgot that Roswell left too.
Yeah, but they couldn't. I wasn't gonna watch that. I was Buffy and Angel.
I never watched Roswell, but I did watch Seventh Heaven.
And now WB's Tuesday is Gilmore Girls in Smallville. So that's what they're like putting up against Buffy. Okay, anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah, this was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I ain't watched. I haven't seen this episode in a very long time. Yeah, I mean, it is wild, like how long it takes for Angel to feel like itself, because there's 2 full seasons before it feels like, oh yeah, this is Angel. Like the addition of Fred is like kind of like that final piece of the puzzle that really like gives it a really rounded out cast. And man, and also like Angel is really only Angel for a very short time, like really just season 3, because they screw things up with Cordelia pretty fast in season 4. So, like, is that a spoiler?
We do spoilers. Yeah, that is true. I don't like season 4's plot, but I like it until a point.
I think season 4 has some of the best episodes, but
like I love the Faith arc. I think that arc is like really like her best outing as Faith is that arc, I think. But then I fucking hate the Jasmine arc. I hate the Connor arc. I hate the Cordelia arc. Like
Cordelia fucking Connor is still one of the most disgusting things that's ever happened on the show. And there's not even like, it's not about the age gap, because there's not that much of an age gap.
Right. If you think about it, there isn't.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like people who are grossed out about Xander and Dawn getting together in the comics. I'm not grossed out about that because of the age. It's only like a 5-year difference. I'm grossed out about that because Xander does not deserve happiness with a woman.
I feel like, and the only woman that like made sense for him was Anya, because she like did not give a shit about his bullshit, and like he kind of was like her like, I don't know, like he kind of, at first I don't love like revisiting the dynamic of him being like, LG, don't say that. But then it becomes like, he's just like devoted to her. And as long as he's the like, kind of the like more like not being able to think he's in control man, I'm like, okay with it. But yeah, no, I agree, Megs. I've had a lot of people say they think that's gross because of the age gap. I'm like, but if you think about it, it's not, especially because Dawn's age was kind of like, they were like season 6, she was a freshman in high school, and season 7, she was a freshman in high school.
I assume she was a sophomore in high school in season 7.
A lot of people thought that, and then when we covered the season, they explicitly say it is her first year, and she's a freshman. Like they say freshman.
That's so stupid.
Yeah. This episode, I felt the same way. It's like fine. It does the thing that I really hate when shows do, that Buffy only did really like once or twice when it pissed me off, is introduce something that is maybe a big deal, or like something that seems important that we never bring up again and we never brought up before, which is this man from his past. Granted, the war in my head about this critique is, okay, but he's been alive so long, like of course there's a bunch of people that have like breezed in and out of his life. but for him to like the way he sees a necklace and it's like a big deal for him, I get that we're like the grief is kind of like being placed on him killing this vampire woman, but I don't know. I don't love introducing something that like should seem important from someone's past that just like never comes up again. We have the Jeremy Renner episode in season 1 that already did this. And we do it again.
And that one is, I would argue, more interesting in terms of a character from his past, because Jeremy Renner's character is fucking insane.
And killing, like he kills everyone at the police station. Like that is
right, exactly.
The horror of it's kind of cool, right?
Yeah, it's
like,
intense and it's interesting. Whereas this is just kind of like, okay, he's just some dude from Angel's past who was deeply in love with his vampire lady.
Yeah.
This feels like we couldn't get Spike and Drusilla for this episode.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't make sense. So let's just here are these two. Like
my thought as well is, I mean, Spike and Drew obviously existed before character-wise, but timeline-wise, these two are like pre-Spike and Drew.
Yeah, that's true.
Quartet. So like, I don't know if the Darla and Angel will go on to try to replicate this because these people were in their lives for maybe 10 years, if that.
Right. Yeah. It did not feel like Darla and Drew, like in those flashbacks, I feel like Darla and Drew always have pretty good, like, chemistry of like Drusilla will follow her and like that, you know, we bring that into season 2 of Angel, like that dynamic just, like that dynamic is always there. And like Angel and Spike have the like dudes who have sexual tension, but just need to fuck it out. And this is like, what is the like, I don't care. We don't even really get the dynamic that much. Like,
no.
The dynamic is Angelus is an arrogant ass to this guy. He's kind of being toxic boyfriend where he's like, oh, give it time and your love will sour and you'll get sick of her. Meanwhile, Darla is like praising Angelus for his bedroom. What do the kids say now? Riz? Is that what they say?
God. I have never used that correctly and never tried.
So. I am so much older than I look, just FYI. And it's so frustrating because it's just like Angel is doing that thing where he's like toxic masculinity 101. I'm sick of my girlfriend, even though we have real hot sex and love killing together. And you're going to get sick of your girlfriend too. I
do have a question for the class because I discussed this a lot last season, and since the 3 of you weren't on, I very much like, as much as they like go back and forth with like, did they love each other? I think they did. Like, I'm curious, Colin, I see you. What do you think? Like, I very much am like, no, Darla and Angelus did love each other. They just also were sociopathic serial killers. So like,
they
capacity for it is
love each other as much as two soulless creatures could. And I think the show and Buffy does it sometimes where like they do it with Spike and Drew of like, these two vampires are capable of love and they do love each other.
Yeah.
Darla and Angelus love each other to a degree, but obviously not the same. And I think these two randoms are just supposed to kind of, I mean, you talked about it a lot last season and you hammered home last season of whether or not they really had love. And obviously it's, you know, when he sleeps with Darla in Reprise and then in Epiphany, we see the results is the opposite of what happened with Buffy. It's supposed to kind of be clearly like, this is not love in the same way. And I think it's just supposed to contrast that, but I don't know that it works as well as they tried.
Brett, what do you think?
Yeah. You wouldn't stick around with them for with someone for a couple hundred years, right?
I think they'd be insufferable.
Yeah.
Mae, what is your take?
I think, Drew and Spike had this very passionate, very bright, burning, honest, true love for each other where they knew they were so devoted to each other until Spike had Buffy come into his life and essentially derail that. Darla and Angelus's love is more founded on mutual respect and understanding, but also kind of this magnetic disgust for each other. There's something where you can tell they hate each other. It's like the Coyote and the Roadrunner. You know, the Coyote and the Roadrunner, when they're off camera, they're fucking. But But
what
when
a
they're
weird example, and I love it.
when they're on, they got to pretend to want to kill each other. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that, and we see that in that episode with the flashback that's referenced in this episode, where she hits him over the head with a shovel and says good luck and runs away on a horse, leaving him for Holtz to find.
I love that when they discuss it, they're both kind of like jokey about it. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
remember that time I left you for dead and hit you with a shovel?
But
Well,
that is
and-
their relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
exactly.
is.
And my BFF, who's my ex-girlfriend and is now essentially my platonic partner, Ian, I've talked about Erica a lot. We make jokes about like, oh, do you see why our romantic relationship didn't work out when we're around friends? Stuff like that. So it's that same kind of jokiness about something that could have been painful in the past. And if you can't laugh at it now, then you're just going to continue being hurt by it.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. I don't love that the show is trying to be like, look, they don't. There's no love. It's like, no, I think they love. It's just like you said, Colin, it's like to the capacity they can love. So we start, I think we do a good job here of, and I mean, you always got to do this with a show where like, they're kind of recapping, but like doing it out loud of like, oh, wow, Angel's gone. He's grieving. And we're reintroduced to Fred. I don't love, it's like, I don't love, but I am charmed 100% by her. I don't love Fred this season. Like for me, it took a while for me to like fully love her and for like her to come into her own as like a understandable, useful member of this team rather than just like hiding and getting captured and being scared.
And having a ridiculous Southern accent.
Yeah, I'm glad we got rid of that.
That goes away.
I feel like I haven't done a full rewatch yet, but I feel like it goes away like this season, right?
Because it was jarring. I was like, oh God. Like,
but Amy Acker, I feel like is like pretty charming. Like I feel like she's good at like, I'm immediately endeared to Fred and I'm like, oh, but this isn't even the version that I like love of her, but I still find her endearing, she's like scared and like, it's also at least understandable why she would be like this, right? It's like,
yeah.
She was in a like this terrible dimension where like either you were a slave or you ran away and maybe survived off like bugs.
I do like that quick reference when Cordelia's like, oh, I miss Pylea. And Wes is like, okay, but you guys had two very different experiences.
We get the gangs coming back from fighting a demon. They're
doing it with the demons.
I feel like them talking about worshiping a demon is Mae, like you and I talking about just religion in general. Like,
why would anyone do that?
I was like, oh, same. I agree with you about the demon, but like, make it anything. I do like Cordy's like, we're not sad. And like Wes is like, no, we're happy. And then he was like, no one's going to humor me. Okay, great. They like remind us that Buffy has died. And then
do we ever see them finding out? We do, don't
yes.
we?
Yeah. Well,
at
the very end of season 2, they come back from Pylea.
Right.
They walk into the lobby of the Hyperion, and Willow is sitting there with a grave look on her face.
Oh, yeah, that. God damn, yeah.
And they make eye contact, and she stands up. And
doesn't say anything.
She doesn't say it.
And then it cuts to credits. And then I start crying.
I want to see what Cordelia's reaction to that.
Yeah.
That's the one thing.
Like,
I know she references a little later that she's, also missed her, but I do think it would have been nice to have a bit of thing with like her and Wes, because obviously like Buffy was a huge part of Cordelia's life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Wesley too. Like, and also like I would have loved to have like, and Gunn, who has never met her.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I mean, I would love to hear more about like him. You guys are really building this person up.
Like, it would have been nice. And I guess 3 months have passed since, but maybe they've done
robbed
it.
of that.
It would have been nice to see that scene where
a lot.
It's like, who is this person? Right?
Yeah,
right.
I would have also like, because we got like little blips of it sometimes with like Cordelia and Willow still being friends, I kind of would have liked that. Like, especially because, and they're doing it so well, Cordelia, even this episode already is maturing even more. But I mean, we say it all the time, but like, it's still herself. She's such a good fucking character that she can grow and mature, but isn't fully becoming this like boring hero character. She's still gonna like read you and still say something sassy and still cares about, a necklace looking good and like, I just
Look at the
Making
way it
her
emphasizes
breasts.
my breasts.
Yeah,
I thought
you're all thinking it.
I thought about wearing something similar, but I couldn't find it. So I'm wearing my signature double snake
I appreciate the
and,
thought.
and a very booby top or dress.
Cordio will be proud.
She would be very proud. We learned that Angel is off with some monks.
The demon monks. It's kind of like in Batman Begins when all the guys start attacking Bruce Wayne when he's like on the powder with the pollen of that flower or whatever. It reminded me of that.
I could see that, honestly. It's weird and goofy, and I thought, I wonder how much that cost. Like, they built this like set and trashed it for like 2 seconds.
For a 1 minute scene that
Yeah.
A ton of stunt people, like learning a whole fight routine.
I was reminded of when Charisma Carpenter came on the podcast and said every single episode of Angel went over budget. I was like, that makes sense. Like she said, that's why they always were afraid they would be canceled, if nothing else than for that. Like that WB would get mad at them for always going over budget. But Angel's such a weird show because I feel like it did this season, again, the production value goes up while Buffy's like pretty much stayed the same once we hit like season 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And I always wonder why that is. Like Angel feels a little bit more cinematic. Buffy feels more like a TV show with a set.
Well, and it gets more, I mean, like when you get to like season 5 and that Wolfram and Hart set is like,
big.
I remember being gorgeous, but I also haven't watched it in like 15 years.
No,
so.
it's still gorgeous.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's huge. Like, right, Mae, you can see like they're walking through hallways and like
it genuinely feels like an actual office.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. But you know what I mean? And like, clearly, no, I'm not knocking Buffy because I fucking love Buffy, but right, it's like Buffy has like, these are all sets that we're in.
If you go back to that season 4 Buffy DVD box set with a little insert that Joss Whedon wrote about how Angel was always meant to be in 16:9, but Buffy is 4:3, just like Match Game 73. Because Buffy is a TV show.
I watched this episode with my roommate Maeve, and I was talking about that Angel was filmed and intended to be seen in 16:9, and they started shooting Buffy in 16:9 during season 4, but it wasn't meant to be seen that way, and I hate that it's on streaming that way. Because that's not how I want to watch it, and sometimes it's just easier than pulling out my DVDs.
Is that why sometimes in some episodes when you see a camera person, is that why?
Yes, that is precisely why, because they were still framing for 4:3, but they were shooting in 16:9. And for some reason, I don't remember if it was like that when Buffy was on Netflix, but once it moved to Hulu, they somehow got a hold of the unmatted picture. And that's why it's in 16:9.
Because I've had people say that they like the Hulu. They're like, "Oh, well, Hulu's looks better." I'm like, "No, it doesn't. It looks awful, and also it's like you see
can see
people."
that person.
Yeah. Like
my favorite one is in this year's Girl.
I knew you were going to say the same thing I did when the camera follows them down the steps and you see it, and it's like, "What the fuck is that?" I was going to say that and Graduation Day are like the biggest like victims of what happens when you do that, because Graduation Day, you see the ends of the set when Buffy and Faith are fighting on the ledge and you see like a guy holding a fucking
Graduation Day is still in 4:3 because that's season 3.
In the part 1 you see the guys at the edge.
Weird.
Those were the two that I always said, that and then Forever, when Willow pulls out the book in her dorm room, you see the guy just sitting in the corner.
The fuck? Like, just idiots. Fucking God.
Anyway, so Angel fights these monks and then just tells the good monks that they were demon monks and
should have gone to Vegas.
Right. We get that guest star Julie Benz, and I feel like Angel and Buffy taught me to be like, who are the guest stars?
Oh,
Let me
yeah.
see.
Yeah.
I remember when I would watch these shows live, I would always be like, what's it say? What's it say? Because like that would tell you if like Drusilla was gonna pop up or like
Oh yeah.
whoever.
Well, and this is a good fake out because then you get that flashback early on. You're like, oh, okay,
That's
she's
why she's
credited
there.
because there's
Right.
a flashback.
It tricked
And,
me.
I
Yeah.
was thinking that when it popped up, because when they do it with Drew in season 2, where they don't do it,
They don't do it,
and
yes.
they do it with Giles in season 6. When she
Yeah.
popped up there, I was like, oh, they ruined the ending, and then she appeared in the flashback. I was like, oh, this is where we.
They tricked me because I was like, oh, when she popped up in the flashback, I was like, oh, I thought we learned she's pregnant in this episode. It's later, but then no, we also find that out in this episode. Post credits, we Wes and Gunn and Cordy are arguing about who's going to set the like mouse traps.
Mhm.
Cordelia says that they're big scaredies, opens the door and yells and jumps into Angel's arms.
Aw.
I feel like looking back, it's like, well, fucking duh, but it's done so well because it's like, oh, but we think of them as just friends and like, oh, they're getting closer. But it's for me, it's like, do you all feel this way? Like looking back at it now, it's like very like this is clear these two are like falling in love with each other.
Mhm.
Well,
Right.
and it's also interesting the history they have because, like, you know how when you go to college and maybe you go far away and it's like, oh well, hey, that's the only other person I know, and maybe you become closer to that person. Like I became very good friends with people from Tennessee that were also in New York,
Mm.
and I feel like that's kind of also what Cordy and Angel have. Like they have these 3 years before of like you're the only other person that knows if I say weird cowboy hat vampire or
I believe you're talking about the Gorch brothers.
or John Ritter above the robot face. Like he's the only one that's gonna know what that is.
Or like, remember when I heard we blew up the high school because of that big monster? Like,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Wesley's like, I was here for that.
Yeah, chimed in real quick.
Wes, like I was unconscious for that. Yeah, no, I love seeing her, and I don't think the way it's playing to me is if you ask Cordelia right now, she would say Angel is one of her best friends. Like I
Mhm.
think that's what she would vocalize it as. I think she would mean it. I don't think she would be like hiding. I think she's like slowly realizes it.
She don't have any other friends. I mean, like
Dennis.
unless Dennis, like the ghost,
Yeah.
or the vampire. Like
The ghost
you
that can't
know-
leave your apartment.
You know
Yeah.
Dennis is doing more with that back scrubber than
loofah.
just scrubbing her back.
Listen, even this episode, I was thinking it especially. I feel like Dennis. If this were written now, Dennis would absolutely be queer because like a queer man worshiping her and
yeah.
like not being able to like see like she's naked in the tub and it's fine. Like I feel like this is a gay man and this is like his like queen.
It's
Mhm.
it's like Elliot and Margot.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it really is. And like I wish we could have gotten. Dennis is such a presence, and it's so
Yep.
weird that we just kind of like never see him again
Yeah.
once Cordelia like leaves. Yeah, I love the Dennis of it all, and like a gay man being obsessed with her and being like, yes, queen, I'll wash your back for you. Yeah, it's not sexual and I don't care. Like, yes, I'll do all this for you. Like that makes sense. But yes, so he's back. Angel has presence. Cordelia says it brings out her breasts.
I would say the same thing, honestly.
But I feel like boobs would make more sense. Breasts makes it sound like the way a guy. I don't know. Do you don't think that? I
no,
thought breasts made it sound clunky.
no, I think that is very Cordelia and
Mm.
very in line with the theory I've shared with you. I believe that Cordelia is high functioning autistic.
Yeah, yeah.
That she's trying to be fun, she's trying to be flirty, she's trying to be
She's still
her
gonna use the,
exuberant
like,
self,
technical- yeah.
and she's using the proper term
Yeah.
for it because that's what feels right to her.
That's fair. That's fair. It is a cute. I appreciate the like. Oh yeah, look how she's so okay with these men, and it is not in a sexual way. And she's like, I know my boobs look good. Like whatever.
Yeah.
You were all
Um,
thinking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
We-
was also like in these scenes that I was like, oh yeah, Cordelia's like 2021. that wild thing of like as soon as they graduate from high school, it's like they are all 25. Like,
Uh-huh.
they're pushing 30 all of a sudden.
I had Jana Spenson on for the 25th anniversary of Earshot, and Jane even specifically mentioned how they aged Cordelia up more than any of the like Scoobies at Sade and Sunnydale because they kind of just had to. Because this is like an adult. This isn't like
it's the more adult
20-year-old
show.
Yeah.
So
well, she's dressed like an adult. I mean, she's like business, smart, casual, business casual.
She's running a detective agency.
Yeah.
She's dressed the way Buffy tries to dress once she becomes the guidance counselor.
Yeah, that's true. She's looking for the businesswoman special. He goes to check in on Fred, and I'm very charmed by like their dynamic here. I forgot how cute their dynamic was. Top. Like,
my only issue is if someone is using a coping skill, even if it's not a healthy coping skill, you cannot literally remove the thing from their hand if they're not actively harming themselves. The fact that he just takes the marker out of her hand while she's in the middle of writing without saying, Fred, would you sit down with me and stop writing? I know I'm coming at this like very highbrow, very well-informed about mental health practices and stuff. It just, that moment really bothered me because otherwise he is very sweet. He's very tender. He's very considerate of her boundaries, except in that one little moment. And so it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb in that case.
What if he took the one and then handed her a big pack of like 16? 16 markers. Like,
what if he gave her one of those giant easels with a pad of paper on it so she could write on that?
I can see your
Pictionary.
This
was they're living in the hotel at this point, and this is always like remembering what Angel is and stuff. And I'm like, okay, there's like limitless rooms there.
Yeah.
And it is wild that I guess Cordelia does want her independence and like having her own house.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man,
but
free rent.
they all have their own. Well, actually, does Gon live in the hotel?
No,
I'm not sure.
Because Wes still has his own apartment.
What the hell? Why live in a hotel then? Like they have to hang out all the time,
right?
Like, they who knows when demons are gonna like, just for ease of like, hey, can you meet us there? I mean, also jeez.
Also, like arguably it's so big they could each have their own floor, right? Like, I mean,
some
I think
walls.
it might just be Angel and Fred that live there
at the moment.
Well, I feel like
I
Gunn
believe
probably does because like. Wasn't he living on the street? Did he have an apartment?
I do want to say that by season 4 they're all living there, I think. But I do feel like, especially going through the podcast, I feel like that's a missed opportunity of like they could have had like that could have been a plot too where like people actually do stay there and like
it's like Newhart, but with demons, a vampire running a bed and breakfast.
You would have loved that, Brad.
I know.
What if it was Newhart and the Bob Newhart show? So there was also like a dentist's office and a psychologist.
Yes. Listen,
if it was like a hotel and like a little mini like strip mall with like all these other.
Yes, exactly.
We see a doctor in this episode.
we speaking of, we cut to vampires. They've like kidnapped, I guess.
Cordy has a vision of them crashing a frat party, I guess it was.
Yeah, they've like kidnapped 2 college students, blah, blah, blah. It did
whoever's room that was must have died because Angel's able to walk in without an invitation, unlike into Fred's hotel room, even though he owns the hotel.
Yes. I do think that doesn't track, right? But a lot of things in the Buffyverse don't track, and it's fine.
The invitation has always been a little
the thing that bothers me more is mirrors and cameras because
sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
Well, old-fashioned cameras, I'm not talking video security cameras. I'm talking about your standard camera uses mirrors. And if a vampire casts no reflection, they can't be photographed, and yet Angel has been photographed many times.
The locket has the photos of 2 vampires.
Right.
That he's about to get.
And those are old photos.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, they're always fast and loose with this. I will sometimes have people try to like correct us in the comments, and I'm like, I promise it. I've gone through every episode. These things don't make sense together, and that's okay.
Right.
But,
and also, I'm ragging on it because we're discussing this, but also, who the fuck cares?
Right. Yeah,
it's a fucking show with magic and vampires and other dimensions. Like, get the fuck over it.
And they were so good at other continuity, like with characters and with
Yeah,
I think
that's
they
what
did that
matters.
really well. It was just
Yeah.
the rules of magic and stuff just are.
Yeah, I always think Buffy spoiled me with that, with like, because the character continuity was always so good and like tight. And that's what I care about more than like, I don't know. But so I did jump. I'm not gonna lie, I was like reheating my dinner and I jumped when Angel landed on the hood of the I was like, woo. I'm like still like anxious from seeing the new Quiet Place movie last night.
How was it?
I liked it. It was good. Angel Stakes, the blonde woman vampire who has a locket, and she says Angelus before she turns to dust. And then we cut to Cordy, where this is like this is kind of the plot, one of the like themes or plots of season 3, right? Her visions are getting like so much worse,
physical and worse.
Yeah, she's like crying. She's like feeling. It's almost like she got beat up, right? Like,
well, now like so, like I, now that I've had a fracture in my tooth, I now understand what this feels like. of like when the pain is so bad that you're just crying and screaming on the floor. I was
yeah,
I know that. Oh, good. Okay, it's just like a tooth thing.
I can relate to that. We're at almost we're at like a year since I got my facial feminization surgery and ended up with an unexpected fracture in my jaw, which caused me the worst pain I have ever felt in my life and doubled my recovery time. And like, I'm talking, I was at a 10 for 2 weeks straight.
Oh God.
Fuck.
Yeah. Not fun. Oh, and also right after my breakup with the person who is now my BFF.
So you were,
and you didn't even get any visions. Like you didn't save anyone's life.
I sure didn't.
and like you feel the thing that I feel like they do your job is you feel for Cordy because like, right, it is that it's like she's just in so much pain and it's so un-Cordy like for her to be like, I'm gonna sit here and like cry and mope. But you get it because it's like she's in so much pain, but it makes you feel even almost like worse for her because it's like, normally she would have something sassy to say. Normally she would have like something to break the tension, but she
I just remember, I think the last time I was on this podcast, is it Anne or where's the episode where you find out that she's had to get a job at a store? And I'm like previously, like that is the most upset she's ever
That was the lowest point in her life.
So this by comparison. Yeah.
Listen, girl, I understand. I also hate getting a job.
Honestly, if you asked her what was worse, the visions or the store, she'd probably still say the store.
She probably would.
Yeah, it's like, God.
She's like, ew, I had to work retail. And like, I get it.
Can't even put a graduation dress on, or prom dress on layaway.
Right? Like, you don't even get something cute for it. Then we get our flashback because we need our crispy wigs and bad accents. Angel, we just see this other couple is with them.
I mean, they're Diet Spike and Drusilla, but they look like Diet Spike and Diet Darla. Honestly.
Yeah. Yes. And we see he mentions Holtz.
It's funny how like that actor, even at the time, I think I was just like, oh, okay, like
which one? Holtz or the vampire guy?
Holtz. Like, because it feels like this is an opportunity to cast, like, maybe a Gilesy looking, like a daddy, like, a late 40s, like hunk, I'm trying to I don't even know who it would be at that time. But it's like, oh no, they just got someone who actually does kind of like a paunchy Frenchman from the 17th, 16th, 18th century. Like,
I mean, dream casting, Jeremy Irons.
Ooh.
Yeah. So he's like, no, this is what it would really be. Like, let's be real for a second.
Yeah.
Not everyone is hot in the past. Like,
not everyone is jacked and hot.
Although for me, I'm like, no, he's handsome. Like, that's my type. But, we don't have to.
Brett, I was actually going to say, I'm surprised you're not attracted to him.
No, I looked him up. And okay, so I mean, first of all, my overall note is that this is just an ugly period.
Yeah.
In time for and I'm talking 1999 to 2003-ish. Like, it's just
not the 1790s.
No. Just everyone. Sam Neill didn't even look good at this time, guys. Like, that is Brett's
favorite.
My one.
Yeah.
That's my one. Watch Alcatraz on what was it, Fox? I don't know, whatever. So yeah, no, he I think he's more my type like later
Mm.
or earlier, but this is just a bad.
Is he your type when he beats the shit out of the Joker in The Dark Knight?
Yeah.
How have I managed to mention 2 of the
Two.
Christopher Nolan Batman movies so far?
One coming.
Let's-
One
Let's
more.
see if I can mention The Dark Knight Rises and how much I hate it.
How am I gonna
You did
fit
it.
in? There you go. You did it. Fun fact: I hate Batman Begins. I think it's so boring, and I hate an origin story that we've seen. I'm a hard sell on any origin, especially if it's like a Batman or Spider-Man, where I'm like,
Yeah.
I fucking get it. Their parents are dead. And I'm allowed to say that. I have a dead mom, so I'm allowed to make that joke, I think.
Dead mom pass.
Yeah. So we then, where the fuck are we in this episode? God, I don't even, I'm looking at my
sorry.
notes.
We're at the scene where Holtz and his gang start to
Elizabeth and
assault
Darla
them.
run off because James wants to fight
Right.
the French guards, but then Holt shows up.
And then we cut to Cordelia and Angel, right? And then that's when she asks what happened to Holtz, but we can just continue this flashback because whatever. So
Okay.
Angel and Jeremy?
James.
James. I called him vampire guy in my notes. I'm very good at notes. They get captured by Holtz, and I kind of, his accent is terrible. His wig is bad. I'm kind of attracted to Angelus Angel though, like, because he's so shitty and smarmy and just like, whatever, I don't care, guys.
And I
you
love you,
know,
but your taste in men is so bad.
I don't say otherwise. I don't argue that fact. And like it was really working for me here when he's just like, this guy's about to kill me. I still don't give a shit. And I like that him and James start fighting and Holtz is just kind of like, all right, let's kill them. Like, this is going nowhere. He gets stuck with a bunch of arrows, and I love that when they get away, he even he says something like, I've got all these arrows in me. Can we give me like a second?
Yeah. And then he's, I do like that Angelus tries to barter with Holtz and says, you can have the women and this dumbass if you let me go, even though I just reminded you that your family was delicious.
Yeah. And James is appalled that he gave up Darla because that's supposed to be your true love.
Even though they just said that was something that they did, like, last time they caught Holtz.
This is our kink. Do not kink shame us.
Yeah.
We leave each other in perilous, deadly situations.
And
that works for us.
Yeah.
And as established, the makeup sex is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what? I bet it is. And I do like that, the guy leaves him, and I kind of like Angelus's little like monologue to it. So he's like, am I a bad bloke?
I do love that he's like, get her a hat. She loves hats.
She loves hats, yeah.
Okay, that was my attempt at an Irish accent.
Yeah, that's very good.
Your David Boreanaz's bad accent is better than the bad accent. So between this, we get Cordelia and Angel, and I love this. I love them talking. This doesn't feel out of character for her, right? From what we've seen of her, we know that she can be insightful. We know that, like,
spank your inner moppet, whatever.
Yes. I reference this moment all the time, but like in Helpless, when Buffy's like, can you drive me home? And she's just like, yeah, of course. Like when she realizes there is like, she needs to like help someone, she will. And she cares about Angel. And I mentioned I have a dead mom. Like, I'm always like interested in the grief conversations. Like we were saying earlier, how like would have liked to see Cordelia react to the news.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, I like that Cordelia isn't like, she isn't just saying like, get fucking over it. She's just like, I understand, like, this is sad. She says, I think I wrote it down. She tells him she knows he's sad because he couldn't die with her. Which I thought...
He couldn't fight with her, he couldn't save her, you couldn't die with her.
Yeah, I thought, like, fuck, that's like... because I haven't rewatched this episode probably since the last time I did a rewatch when I lived with Jason Sullivan 100 years ago, but like I forgot that like she says that, and that didn't even occur to me. It's just like, oh, he's just sad because it's the person he loved. But that makes sense, especially with how Angel ends and why the show ends the way it does with them still fighting, because the show's theme is always the fight is never over. So of course he would want to die fighting with her, right? that makes sense. And I just love that Cordelia's the one that gets to say it out loud. And she's like, I know why you're sad. And I like that. I don't know. I always like seeing how characters deal with their grief and how they navigate who knows what to say when, who doesn't know what to say.
And it's like, I love her even saying like, oh, this is one of those conversations where it's just going to be me talking. Okay.
Yes.
And I like that too, because it's just like, okay, cool. Like, you don't have to say anything.
And I very much appreciate they don't undercut it. There's no joke, right? Like,
well, right at the end though, when she's done with her little bit and she's like, okay, like we've got that through, but like we've been through so much, you owe me one thing. And then she's like, what happened with Holtz though? You think it's going to be like, you owe me, like, you have to say something to me about Buffy, or you have to let me know what's going on. But she just like, no, this is not the time for that. You're not ready. So
give me the dirt.
Let's get back to the flashback.
But I like that. But you know what I mean? There's like, once she says the night, like she's not undercutting it with like, and you're annoying or like whatever. And sometimes in season 1, they would undercut her like sensitive, like moments of whatever with like a kind of like turnaround joke where it's like, oh, okay, but like, so I appreciate that we did not. I want you all to know my notes now say vampire guy, who cares, goes to doctor, wants cure, whatever.
That's not it.
A quick question about James in the modern era. I know you've already mentioned that his haircut was atrocious, but did they just pull an old Doyle outfit out for him to wear?
Ooh.
It looks like it.
Yeah, it does look like it. I hadn't thought of it, but now that you say it, I'm like...
As soon as he appeared in the garage, I was like, that green shirt and leather jacket combo certainly looks familiar.
I would not be surprised. We get Caritas and the hotel. Gunn and Wes are at Caritas, listening to Lauren sing. They're... Yes, Mae?
I just wanted to call out the doctor's line. I go through this every month, just like a woman.
The nurse, what does she call it? Does she say he's shedding or slotting?
Sloughing.
Because I thought it was sloth, and I was like, why the fuck would she say sloth? But because he's a slod demon, which...
Yeah, it's slough, Slough, which is always a disgusting word to me when I read it, because it just makes me think of that scene in Poltergeist when the guy's face get blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Poltergeist is my scarred for life movie.
Yeah. we see them at Caritas. We're reminding everyone that Lorne exists. This is like his only,
that's real music.
That nice was old demon.
That was good. I actually like Merle. I like him. I like that you all said at the same time. I like him I almost wish he stuck around longer because I think he dies in like 2 episodes.
He dies in a few episodes, and isn't it? Spoilers, isn't it? Because a Gunn's old gang kills him.
I think so. Yeah. That's in like the 3rd or 4th episode.
I just always love to have like side reoccurring characters. Angel does it well, but Angel usually kills them in a few episodes. That's like what they like go away forever, like the rich guy from the end of season 1, beginning of season 2. Angel tells Cordelia to go home. She's refusing.
Nice bit of meta commentary.
Yes.
Like, because now they know that this guy, they're like, you killed his like girlfriend of a couple hundred years. He's absolutely, if he's still alive, he's absolutely going to come kill you.
Yeah.
You send me home. Now I'm alone. I get taken hostage. Come sting.
And she's not wrong, right?
Yeah.
No.
I feel like that's the way the episode would have gone if she did go home. I do, what I really appreciated as well is that Cordelia still like tries. Like she's still like, I like that she fucking throws that fire extinguisher and hits him right in the fucking head.
Yeah, I love that.
I was like, oh yeah, girl, get it.
I mean, she got some distance on that thing. Like,
she did.
Clear across the lobby.
There's no way I would have gotten it that far or hit the guy so directly, and I would have ended up hitting Angel by accident and been like, well, now I'm fucked. I knocked Angel out with the fire extinguisher.
She didn't accidentally arm him with a stake.
She did, yes.
She was
but like you said, even with that, she got some distance. Like she throws that thing. And I really like that we're building up that Cordelia of like, yes, she is going to still throw herself in the fight. And like, I think it's in like 4 episodes when she starts training with him. Like, I really like that. Yes.
Yeah. Isn't it the next episode where Cal Penn shows up? No. That's from season 1. But the next episode is that vision thing. And I feel like it's after that she resolves to like learn more about fighting.
Yeah. So they have this fight. Angel does stake him. It does not do anything. Angel kicks him outside. It doesn't do anything. They run into the sewers. I like them arguing about the Gem of Amara because I kept
did
thinking
like that
about
being
it.
brought up. And when she's like, did the Amara people make cufflinks?
Yeah. And he's like, there's only one. And she's like, and you destroyed it.
I also love when she's like, well, he's invincible. And he's like, well, let's not stretch it out. And then when Wesley calls, she's like, oh, he's invincible, is he?
Yeah. Also, Cordelia always ahead of the trend. I like that she had a cell phone in Buffy season 1. She has a cell phone here. Buffy does not get a cell phone until season 7. Not even during this season does she have a cell phone on the show. I do love West calling her, and she like is like, yeah, we're already like in there. We're like already fighting that part of the fight. It's 6 something. I did not write down what the conceit is. I know she hears 6, but what is it?
How long until
he's
he dies?
invincible for 6 hours, I guess it would be.
6 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but they don't know if it's 6 hours, days, weeks, whatever. So we'll just wait it out. We'll just wait it out. And then he crashes through the fucking wall.
Well, the implication is we'll just wait it out here.
Yeah.
Like then it's like, well, Cordelia, now you can go home. Like now you'd be in the sunlight, just make sure you're there. They chase them to the subway, which I have no idea how that works in LA. I don't know I forget that LA has had a subway.
Yeah. And I guess this probably is the LA subway. Didn't it film in Los Angeles?
They did, yeah.
Yeah, so
it probably is. Yeah, I feel like
I
Angel...
like the subway set, too. Like, it actually looked nice.
Yeah, I feel like Angel shot on a lot of actual locations. So then we have a train fight. We love a train fight. I do like the guy saying, like, oh, after you had sex with Darla, and he's like, how'd you... Oh, you mean...
I mean,
yeah.
hundreds of years ago. Right.
Yeah, you're right. 100 years ago, I did have sex with her. The guy, he dies. I think you said this at the top of the episode. Kind of whatever, right? It's pretty anticlimactic, or it's like, all right.
Yeah, he just goes on a whole speech of like, because Angel's like, no, I loved someone and she died, and he's like, no, because if you did love her, you would be dead too. And then
Which is still, I don't understand it shakes Angel when he hears the you would be dead too if you truly loved her, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like
it's about the idea of toxic, codependent, romantic love that is instilled in us by media and societal conditioning.
He's got hundreds of years of that.
Right. Yeah. That once you find your person, if they die, you die, because you can't possibly live without them. You can't be complete without them. And there's actually a lot of stuff in this episode that feels like someone was reading up on borderline personality disorder and was like, I'm going to sprinkle little nuggets of that in here. Also, sprinkling nuggets is a disgusting phrase, and I really wish I had not.
It is.
I'm sorry, everybody. That
was
so
very
sorry.
Willow of you, Mae, by the way.
Yeah, it sure was. Anyway, the way Fred is responding to Angel being back and seems so desperate for him to not go anywhere again is very BPD, and I'm saying this with authority because I myself have borderline personality disorder, well managed, thankfully. The idea of being so attached to someone that you cannot exist without them is very unhealthy. There's nothing wrong with community. There is nothing wrong with loving someone so strongly that you don't know the shape your life would take without them.
Yeah.
But the assumption and the buy-in into the fact that you can't exist without them, that's not healthy. That is toxic.
Not to get into whatever, but Mae, I feel like you and I, that's why, I was talking about this, I think, on the last Nudie Judy with Zach, maybe, that, I feel like that's why you and I do put a lot of stock in friendships and, other relationships. And, if anything, my dad post my mom's death has made me feel validated in the work I put into friendships, because all of those things my dad would probably be like, yes, those are actually what happens. That's what should happen. He probably would think the things you were stating as toxic, you'd be like, well, yeah, that's what happens when someone, and it's not great. So the guy dies, whatever. We start to wrap up the episode. Angel and Cordelia have their talk, and he does say that what's affecting him is that he is able to go on without Buffy. And I kind of like that. Granted, this is why we love these shows, right? But like, that is kind of like, especially for a show in this era, I was kind of, because I haven't rewatched this, I was surprised that that's what he said. And I do like that. I like the idea of like, not only is he grieving, but then he feels bad, because that is something you experience when you're like, oh, I'm doing this without so-and-so. I feel bad. Like I want them to be here. I want to be able to call them. I feel bad. I still think about that. Like, I remember putting my mom to bed last year when we were still like caretaking or whatever. And I remember her and I talking about what my grandma would have loved and how my grandma, her mother, would have loved Cardi B. Like, she was like, oh, my mommy would have loved that she like, didn't need a man. And because my grandma was like very big on like, she liked my friend Robin, who painted the Buffy that's behind me, because Robin was a single mom and like got a job and got a house and rebuilt her kitchen herself. And my grandma was like elated that I had a friend that did. And she'd always say, I like her. She doesn't need a man. And like, that was my grandma's favorite thing. So, it's like shit like that. When someone's gone, you think of it, you're like, oh, I wish they could have experienced this with me, or I wish they could have whatever. And that's not something I fully expect, especially from the character of Angel, let alone a show of this time.
Yeah, it's always interesting because everyone's grief takes different shapes.
Right.
We all go through the 5. I've talked about this before on multiple podcasts.
May, I have said recently that like I feel like I tell the same 5 stories over and over again. So you're don't worry.
I like hearing them every time you tell them if it makes you feel better. But we all go through the same 5 stages of grief, just not always in the same order, not always in the same way. And sometimes when we expect to grieve in a particular way and we don't, we feel like there's something wrong with us. We feel broken. We feel like, oh, I'm not doing this right. And then we shame ourselves for it. And we get more focused on the shaming ourselves than we do on processing our grief in the way that we are naturally doing.
Yeah. And a thing that I also think about a lot is how other people want you to grieve sometimes people want you to grieve a certain way. And if you're not grieving that way, then like,
you're not doing it right.
I thought about this while I was watching this, actually. When I was in high school, I went to a Catholic school for 2 years, so forgive me. But my partner in religion class died in a car accident. Like the last like few weeks, like I think it was like we were taking a test that day, and I was excused. And I remember feeling guilty because I didn't know the guy that well. Like it was sad, but I was like 15, and like, you know what I mean? Like you don't quite. I mean, you're 15, you're like not a child, but you're still a kid. And I wasn't like processing it. And I remember feeling guilty that I was excused from the test because I was like, but I'm not crying like everyone else. I feel bad. Like I feel like I just got something that I don't deserve because I'm not crying the way everyone else is. And like, like, I don't know. And then I remember a girl telling me she saw me smile. And so that I was so nasty for smiling that day.
Ew.
Yeah. And I remember she like messaged me on AIM to tell me that like, it was disgusting that she saw me smile at the end of the day talking to so-and-so. And how insane that was to say to like, what do you mean? Like,
how dare you smile?
Well, I mean, how dare you be on AIM when you should be?
Aren't you in school?
Yeah. But I think about that a lot, and I like that Angel is at least acknowledging he's not grieving the way he thought he would.
Yeah.
And it's not that Cordelia or Gunn or Wes are judging him for that. It's that he's just judging himself.
Which he doesn't. That's his profession.
He loves doing that. He does love doing that. One of his favorite things to do. And I just love when she tells him that living, like the way he's living, he's honoring her. And he says, you think? And she says, I don't think. I know. Okay.
I'm Cordelia.
I could cry. Like that is so her, but she's saying it in a comforting way because also, when you're that upset, you need to hear a confident voice, right? Like someone who she's basically telling him, you are going to be okay. And I know it. Like there is no doubt in my mind, you will be okay. And I know it because I'm Cordelia and I'm fucking smart. Like that's nice, right? Like,
I also love her saying like, you continuing the fight, you moving on this way, you still living your life and doing what we do is honoring her because that's what Buffy told Dawn.
Yes, yes, that's true.
You need to live for me. Don't, carry on.
I didn't even think. Now I'm gonna cry. I didn't even think about that, Colin.
Yeah,
Fuck.
God.
Ugh. Then we wrap up the episode, and we get an epilogue. And who do we see, Brett?
It's Miss Darla, the original recipe Darla, not diet Darla.
Our beloved Julie Ben shows up, and a man has kind of. What he says, like, oh, I got the
He found
shaman
the
for you.
Number or
Not a hard
shot,
shaman, or not an easy shaman to find.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Then he wants her to have a drink with him, which, like, sir, as the audience finds out in 2 seconds, she is pregnant, and she.
I mean, to be
them.
fair, she's sitting there smoking a cigarette.
True.
Yeah.
And I guess she is a vampire, so, like, I don't know what rules apply to that. She kills the man, and I do love the reveal when she says life's full of surprises, turns around with her huge fucking pregnant belly. It's so good.
I love her killing him, like drinking him, and then sucking on a lime.
Yes.
Like she was taking a tequila shot. Great.
Julie Benz, I feel like she would be a good, like, villain in Marvel. Like, she's so good at, like, this of like, she's casually killing this man. She is not pressed about this at all. It's just like, you're annoying. Like you said, Brett, when she takes the fucking lime, it's like, she's like, whatever. And she's just so good at this kind of, like, acting. She's so fun to watch. Do we remember the surprise when she was pregnant when we watched this at all?
Oh yeah, I was shocked.
I was probably eating dinner while I was watching this, and I'm pretty sure during that scene I was like, oh my God, Darla's back. And then when she turns and she's pregnant, I probably was just like, probably dropped whatever utensil I was holding.
Well, and I was even having a hard time placing. I was like, wait a second, is this before? Like, what? And I was like, oh, no, okay, this is the pregnancy. Because I keep remembering, like, the way that she gives birth is so memorable.
Yes, that scene is, like, one of, for me, the most iconic Angel scenes. Yeah, and because she doesn't show up at the hotel, I think, for, like, 4 or 5 more episodes, maybe.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah. That is the one thing Angel maybe was they did too much of the slow burn where it's like, all right, get her there. Like, because if you're showing us this now, it's like, well, now I want to, like, see that pregnancy plot line.
Yeah, this is well, I'll save that for grades.
We are at the end. What was your favorite scene, Colin?
It's the Darla scene at the end.
All right. Brett?
Yeah, Cordy throwing a fire extinguisher.
I do like that. Mae?
I'm with Colin. The Darla scene at the end is fucking iconic.
It's great, but I gotta say, for me, it's the Angel and Cordy's last scene where they're like talking about the grief, because I just love her confidently telling him she knows he'll be okay because she knows things. Yeah. What was a favorite outfit, Mae?
Darla's look back in 1767, that fucking corset gown with the jacket over it and her hair up the way it is. She looks like a fucking queen because she is a queen. If I could look like that every day, I would. But summer in Chicago is killing me. I am so happy. It's only like 68 degrees today, and it's such a fucking relief because I have been feeling terrible because I cannot stop sweating.
I decided not to go up to New York for Pride because I was like, I am just not in the mood to be squished in a crowded bar that I had to pay to get into and also sweating to death. And it's been storming all day, so I'm even happier that
that's right.
Yeah. Colin.
I'm going to give it to the outfit Cordelia's wearing when she gets the necklace, because it just, with the necklace added in, brings out her breasts so nicely.
And good for her. Brett?
No one. This is a heinous time for fashion. This is a disgusting...
Not even Lauren's suit?
Lauren's suit is pretty good.
It's so big, though.
Yeah. And like, as someone, the tailoring on that is atrocious. I can't... To
go into how nerdy I am.
The old demon.
And Brett with his grandpa sweater. It's so good.
That is, because that's timeless fashion.
Brett, I know that you will at least appreciate this. So in the figures that I make, the guy, Joe Hill, hi Joe, if you're listening, I appreciate you. Joe does a lot of the heads, and he will sometimes do the figures, and he was like, oh, I'm having trouble finding a figure that has a baggy suit for Lorne, and I was like, I'm not doing the baggy suit. He's getting a more form-fitting suit. I can't do the baggy. And he was like, yeah, I don't like them either, but because he wanted it to be more accurate. And I was like, that makes sense, but me, I just can't.
I have a lot of thoughts about I have a lot of thoughts about suits, and about like suits on television have not looked good in about 30 plus years. There's just something about like, do they all just look cheap?
But again,
JC Penney realness.
I will say I actually know a lot of gay men, and I've dated some that like also don't know how to like wear a suit, and then they end up looking like a kid wearing their like parents' outfit, and like the shoulders are too big, and like.
Can you imagine for a moment if they had let Gunn be a gay character?
I know
how much better he would have dressed than the stupid baggy long sleeve shirts and pants they always put him in.
Traffic cone orange everything at that time.
It's so bad, and it's just
even
like
Wesley's shirt when he goes to Caritas is like it looks like a Xander shirt. It was
so
big.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a Gadzooks like cat's son. It's like, you are Wesley.
I forgot about Gadzooks.
I thought everything at Gadzooks.
I dated someone who worked at Gadzooks, so remember that place.
I remember you mentioning that on an episode, and that was like the first time I had thought about Gadzooks in years.
Kids, Gadzooks was Hot Topic before Hot Topic.
It's true.
I actually did like when Cordelia throws the fire extinguisher. I know this is that of that era, but I like the like tailored tighter blazer with the like jeans.
Look, that's the most classic looking thing anyone's wearing. It looks nice.
I like it. She's got the hoops. I love when Cordelia kind of looks Hispanic. I'm like, oh, like she's looks like family. Like give her some big hoops. She's got her tan. She's got her makeup. She looks great. I mean, but also Charisma Carpenter just always looks fantastic in everything. I had a friend, Charles, text me the other day. He saw her on the subway. He was like, I'm not asking for her picture, but this is Charisma Carpenter, right? Like he was not 100% like, this is her, right? And I was like, yep, that's her. And she looked fantastic on the sweaty subway. And I was like, man, it must be great being that hot where you still look gorgeous and it is disgusting pea soup in the subway.
While hot,
yeah. What grade do we give this episode, Brett?
So, yeah, this is what I was going to say. Like, I would say like B-. I do think like the most notable thing about this episode is like what it sets up for this season. It does a really good job of being kind of like an overture of like the Darla pregnancy. We get the introduction of Schultz. We get, the visions with Cordy. We don't get the whole like everyone's in love with Fred thing until later. Wesley and Gunn do not interact with her in this episode.
Yeah, they don't.
So yeah. So I mean, like B-. I mean, like it is fine. I got to imagine like. Did this air right before the season? I guess the Monday before the season 6 premiere.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, that's a better way because you don't want to watch the season 6 premiere of Buffy and then have this.
No.
You're like, what the fuck? Okay. Well, this was a.
It is. I actually was thinking about this, and Angel kind of doesn't really have like a killer season premiere at all. Like maybe season 5.
It's usually because like their plot lines don't start until like episode 8.
Yeah.
Like every season doesn't really get into gear until like
that is true.
Like a while in. When does Wesley get his throat cut?
Not till like halfway through this season, I don't think.
Yeah.
It's so weird. That plot line happens so later, and in my mind, that's the whole season. But Colin, what grade do you give it?
I'd go with a B+ as well. I think, like you said, it sets up a lot of good stuff, but as an episode itself, it's...
Yeah, agreed. It lays a lot of groundwork, but in a kind of haphazard way. It's not super interesting as a standalone episode. I would have rather had a little more investment in watching some grieving over Buffy. So I'm going to go with a B-.
All right.
Which I think is the harshest grade I've given on an episode so far, which is hilarious.
And now it's like magicians all over again. I'm the harshest grader. I give this a C because I just do not care about the like action-y part of the plot. I'm like, give me more Cordelia and Angel talking about their feelings. That's what I want to watch more of. But again, still, it was still kind of enjoyable. And so the scenes that were good were good. thank you for joining us for Angel Season 3. I'm excited to have all of you here.
Yay!
Thank you all for listening. We are going to try, my fingers are crossed if you're not watching this video, try to make this weekly until we're done. I say that every season, and then usually there's a little bit of a break. Try to not make that happen this time, but we'll see.
You have to do that with season 4, because that was the big thing about season 4 of Angel, was it aired like 8 episodes back to back, and then it came back and just did every single week until the end.
I remember having to wait for the Faith and being the Faith episodes and being like, come on! And then it was so exciting.
Yeah.
The plot of season 4 really kicks in like, I think episode 4 or 5, and then it's just continuous.
Yeah.
So every single week I was like, no reruns. This is amazing. Anyway, I don't know why I just hijacked your outro.
No, you're fine. But so we're going to try to do that. I also am going to try to be doing only on YouTube reactions to The Boys, because I haven't watched that show, and why not?
Are you just going to start cold with the latest season? Or?
No, I'm going to start cold with season 1.
Okay. I think you just jump in on
because people have been talking about the new season a lot. I've been recommended is it Gen V? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I've been recommended that by so many people, but I also don't want to watch it without the context.
Yeah. And if you want a great podcast to listen to about The Boys, Jen from my podcast has a podcast called The Girls on the Boys. It's her and Rachel Reeves from Halloweenies. And it's them talking about The Boys every week.
Right. Well, that will only be on YouTube because I need to do something to keep up with YouTube content. Hopefully that'll be starting the same time this is dropping. If not, well, it'll be starting soon. And if you want to follow Slayerfest 98, you can find us on Spotify. You can watch our videos on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else you get your podcast. Please subscribe and give us a good rating because that helps me. If you want to follow us on social media, we are at SlayerFestX98 on all social media platforms. If you want to follow me, I'm at ENX Carlos. You can subscribe to our Patreon, where we're going through X-Men the Animated Series and Batman the Animated Series, and we'll be doing Buffy Season 4 as each episode turns 25. And any and all support is much appreciated. Colin, where can everyone find you?
I am on the various socials at csmith03.
And Brett, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Brett White, and you can follow my drag alter ego at Barb Hardley on YouTube and Instagram. And you can, my podcast, Must Have Seen TV, now has a Patreon that is just launched. So
nice.
Please give us money so that we can afford to actually invest money into it. After 7 years, finally.
Mae, where can everyone find you and your podcast?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at EversonPoe. That's EversonPoe. You can find my music on Bandcamp and streaming services by searching for Everson Poe, 2 separate words. You can find me co-hosting and editing The Lady Killers, a Feminine Rage podcast, on your podcatching app of choice. We're on the Bloody Disgusting Podcast Network. On Twitter, we're at The Lady K Pod. On Instagram, we're at The Lady Killers Pod. And you can also find me occasionally on Tender Subject, talking about cannibalism and body horror.
Well, thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.